Welcome to Business Studies, Grade 8, 9 lesson. Our today's topic is the ledger. I'm your presenter, Mr. Simuntala John. Let's look at lesson outcomes for today. 1. We shall define a ledger. 2. We shall explain the double entry system. 3. We shall draw the format of a ledger account. Lastly but not the least, we shall identify and explain types of ledgers. Let's begin by looking at the double entry system. But before we do that, it is very important to look at what a ledger is. So the question is, what is a ledger? A ledger is a book where related accounts are grouped. We may also say that it is the principal or main book of accounts. But one would wonder, why is the ledger referred to as the principal or main book of accounts? Well, to answer that question, the reason why the ledger is called the principal or main book of accounts is because this is where the double entry system is completed. A ledger account is used to summarize all the transactions. Now that we now know what a ledger is and what its use is, let's look at what makes up a ledger. A ledger account has two sides, the debit side and the credit side. And depending on the format, all the sides may contain the following columns. 1. The title. Every ledger account will have a title, meaning that the use for the title, this is where the account name will be indicated. Secondly, the ledger will have the date column. This is where the date of the transaction is recorded. The other column is called the particulars or details column. This is where a short description of the transaction is entered. The other column is called the folio column. The folio column, this is where the page or reference number of that particular transaction is entered. Lastly but not the least, the ledger account will have the amount column. This is where the amount will be entered either on the debit side or on the credit side. So, every ledger account, we expect it to have at least all these columns. Now, let us shift our attention and look at the format of a ledger. There are two different types of formats that one can use when preparing the ledger accounts. The first one is called the horizontal format. The picture below shows how the horizontal format looks like. So when you are told to draw the ledger account, you can use the horizontal format and it looks like this. 1, it will have the account name there as the title. Then it has two sides, the debit side and the credit side. On each of the two sides, it is going to have the date, details, folio, and amount. Even the credit side there is the date, details, folio, and amount. Let's look at the other format. It's called vertical format. The picture below shows how the vertical format looks like. It has the account name and it only has one date column, one detail column, one folio column, then debit column and credit column. I'm sure most of you've been using the vertical format, but you should also try to use the horizontal format, because some books it will get this one, others will use the other one. Now let's look at the types of ledgers. For the purpose of maintaining control over the number of financial transactions, the ledger is subdivided into the following. 1. The general ledger. The other name for the general ledger is known as the nominal ledger. The other one, purchase ledger. The third one, sales ledger. The fourth one, cash book. And the fifth one, private ledger. So in total, we may call them, there are 5 different types of ledger accounts. Now let's look at each type. What transactions are recorded in the general ledger or nominal ledger? The general ledger is a ledger in which we record a summary of all transactions for accounts such as assets, liabilities, revenues or incomes, expenses, and owners of equity. The second type of ledger, purchase ledger. The purchase ledger is a ledger in which we keep accounts of all creditors or suppliers. The third one, sales ledger. The sales ledger is a ledger where all transactions affecting the debtors or customers are recorded. The other one, cash book. Well, what we know is that a cash book is the book of original entry, where we will find cash account and the bank transactions being entered. But it is also a part of a ledger. Do you know why? There are some transactions whose double entry system are completed within the cash book. What are those transactions? Transactions involving contra entry. For instance, deposited cash into the bank account. You look at cash you give out and bank you receive, and these two, cash account and bank account, they are all found in the cash book. Therefore, the double entry system for that particular transaction will be completed in one book. Lastly, we have the private ledger. This is a ledger where some companies keep accounts that are confidential in nature, such as a capital and drawings account. We've come to the end of today's lesson, but I want you to take time and answer those questions. 1, I want you to answer question 1. What type of transaction recorded or kept in the following ledgers? The general ledger, purchase ledger, sales ledger, and the private ledger. I also want you to explain why a cash book is considered to be a ledger account. Now, what have we learned today? Today, we've learned that the ledger is the main book of accounts. For the purpose of maintaining control over the number of transactions to be recorded, ledger accounts are subdivided into the general ledger, sales ledger, purchases ledger, and in some cases, the private ledger. Thank you so much. When we meet next, in our next lesson, we'll learn how to post transactions to the ledger. Stay at home for you to stay safe. Bye-bye.